Airbnb is announcing new security measures.
They could not believe what they saw.
Stealing over $35,000 in valuables.
Furniture destroyed, garbage everywhere.
Not really traveling right now. Things are looking a lot different for short-term rentals.
Airbnb is currently having a difficult time. Being one of the most innovative short-term rentals, the company has been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic. In 2019, Airbnb was valued at $31 billion. By the end of April 2020, its valuation almost halved to $18 billion. Now we could blame the pandemic for the company's downfall. But really, Airbnb has been struggling long before the COVID-19 breaks into our daily life. The story begins in 2007. Two former classmates, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia from the Rhode Island School of Design, both quit their job, wanting to pursue their own business. However, two things happened simultaneously, guiding them to another path they didn't expect. First, they received notice that the rent for their flat in San Francisco would be raised by 25%. For the two unemployed graduates, this message was a looming alarm, ticking their last minutes before getting homeless. Second, they went to an industrial design conference in San Francisco. Soon, they received another notice saying all hotels were sold out. And that encouraged them to stumble across a new business idea: help people rent out their spare rooms. Since then, Airbnb has grown so fast. Within 10 years, its total number of rooms has occupied 1/3 of the world's hotels' rooms combined. Up to date, the company offers diversified rentals in a large variety. From a single room in a modern flat in New York City, to a castle in Cambria, or a tree house in a forest, a motorhome for a road trip, or even a houseboat floating above the water. Hospitality's been there for thousands of years. Airbnb didn't invent anything new. Instead, it distinguished itself from the traditional hospitality industry, using its two-sided platform to maximize its flexibility during an expansion. Another reason that Airbnb has such a massive accommodation inventory than any other restaurants is because of its unique advertisement, the customers, aka word of mouth. After spending one day or two in the Airbnb stays, the guests might switch to hosts, sharing their own space too, potentially offering more exclusive inventories to Airbnb. These unique advantages established at the first stage are what made Airbnb still remain competitive until early this year. Facing charges of discrimination and illegal activities on the one hand, while confronting multiple competitors on the other hand, the company has been criticized for dedicating itself to inequality, while driving up local rental prices, contributing to housing shortages in many major cities. Little known by the majority, all these problems were predetermined because Airbnb as a multinational business the absence of a systematic strategy to control place and process has emerged from the dark. I am Junming. Today, two of our peers will join us and share their perspectives and see what we can do to help Airbnb out of troubles.
It's very easy to copy Airbnb's business model. The traditional hotels are working on delivering their services over the internet too, which made the competition more intense in the short-term rental market. And it's been a while that Airbnb has been condemned for the safety and discrimination issues. Its reputation has also been affected by some of their guests' harmful behavior at their destinations. These weaknesses have made Airbnb weaker when facing a market competition and entering a rising market like China. What we have found is that Airbnb lacks regulations and interventions on the inside because the business is accustomed to taking less responsibility. Airbnb indeed has many problems that are lowering its users' experience while damaging its reputation for years. Yet its efforts of solving those issues were commented as a formalism to prevent bigger conflicts from happening. Airbnb must take more responsibility to apply a solving plan for protecting and screening the customers. Airbnb can really learn from Didi, the Chinese Uber. I think there are 4 feasible alternatives that might hit the performance target. Emergency systems allows Airbnb to actively participate in incident intervention. The system can easily be set up on the existing platform, but not everyone can accept the real name registration. People are more aware of their personal information now than ever. Airbnb should consider establishing their internal supervision system, otherwise there should be someone else do those things for them. Just like many other platforms, people who have lower rates will be subjected to additional restrictions. The customer will have access to more useful information with this internal screening process. Part of the risk will be transferred to the insurance company and the customer itself, which is the most straightforward solution. However, it's not really a long-term plan. Standardizing hosting procedure is a good choice, I believe. The online trail course for the host can be part of the standardizing process. Such a course can convey a uniform standard to hosts in a short time, and those hosts who pass the course can have a clearer service standard. Therefore, the conflicts between hosts and guests can be reduced, and further reduce the negative image of uneven service quality.
Internal problems seems to be the most obvious and the most straightforward ones for Airbnb. The suggested programs may be able to correct Airbnb's operational issues in the short term. But from a broader vision, Airbnb still has more severe problems.
Airbnb is still a dominant player in the short-term rental market, especially in the US, but they start to lose this position because of the insufficient competitive advantages. Airbnb serves as an online platform linking two sides of users together. The website is easy to build and the business model is easy to copy. This makes the barrier for short-term rental market even lower to enter. After Airbnb made a huge success, Tujia joined the competition shortly in 2011. Since then, Tujia started to buy vacant properties and turned them into mini hotels, which running only by Tujia's staff. Tujia also has its own inspectors and housekeepers. This grants them more power to regulate their properties. Further, the traditional hotels start to step in the short-term rental market as well, as they start to provide local experience to its customers by setting up their platforms and applications, and also cooperate with third-party platforms to compete with Airbnb in the short-term rental market. If you look at the two-sided users of Airbnb, you will notice both hold high bargaining powers as a result of intense competition of the short-term rental market, because both sides can switch to Airbnb's competitors at any time. The growth of Airbnb starts to slow down as they make fewer service fees from each rental. What Airbnb needs is a strategy for product differentiation, I think there's missing something. The first is the network building process, which involves cooperation with other online platforms to provide customers with convenient and complete experiences. The ideal cooperation object would be the Uber and local restaurant online platforms. Think about it. I can book every single of my activities on Airbnb. From where I leave my airplane, there is an Uber driver waiting for me and send me to my Airbnb stay directly. And the local restaurant that are around my stay provide me with their coupons through the Airbnb app. Such integration could provide customers with unique, well convenient one-stop services. The second method is value chain building process, which involves expanding and building Airbnb's internal value chain. Let's make some quick examples here. The first is Airbnb Pay. As a technology company, Airbnb has the ability to set up their own payment system, which allows the user to shop the local market and restaurant simply use Airbnb Pay. The easy payment system can trap customers, housing suppliers, and the local business into Airbnb's loop, which will be more cost for them to switch to other platforms. Secondly, the value-added unique local experience would also increase the value of the service. The service such as the Airbnb local guide and put more unique place on the Airbnb's listing.
The potential risk involved in the online operation would be a data safety issue, and the negative externalities done by its partner would also affect its operation. If a passenger uses a coupon provided by Airbnb to take Uber to their stays and gets, let's say, robbed, unfortunately, by the driver, then you will have less control over your own reputation. They need a contingency plan. If Airbnb is highly connected to other platforms, there will be a higher possibility that Airbnb will suffer from the negative externalities caused by its allies. You see, when you offer third-party bundles to Airbnb users, there will be more risks such as robbery and scam. Because you expand your service spectrum, your users experience more activities provided by you or your partners. A better way to prevent such outcomes is to build efficiency across platform internal communication system. Some data can be very sensitive, especially those related to customers' identification. If your information leaks, the company will face reputation damages in terms of consumer confidence. Therefore, the data security maintenance is necessary for the company. One method is subcontracting it to a data security company.
The constant loss of Airbnb's competitiveness is due to the wrong positioning and the lack of service differentiation. But besides these, Airbnb also failed to adapt to different cultures and regulations. We used the past module to analyze its symptoms. Soon, we identify Airbnb's missing a strategy to deal with diversified environment. In the city of San Francisco, Airbnb worked with the local government to collect hotel taxes. But not all governments do the same. New York City introduced regulations restricting short-term rentals back in 2011. Airbnb is struggling in China for its survival too. Several international information providers have been banned by the Chinese government, as they are the essential tools for Airbnb to connect with customers. People worry that Airbnb will adversely affect their long-term housing market because, in many cities, housing prices have increased due to Airbnb's entry, although Airbnb's development momentum in the international market continued to slow down. Its ambition to be dotted on the world map is not yet complete. Airbnb devoted itself to cross-cultural communication experience, but not all experience the company provides are pleasant. Conflicts happen from time to time, but Airbnb lacks systematic awareness of differences, which makes things get worse. The external feedbacks explained that the lack of Airbnb's response strategies and similar problems in different regions also reflected the insufficiency of diversified solutions for various conditions. Therefore, Airbnb needs a flexible response strategy to deal with the diverse needs and market challenges of different regions. An adaptive strategy is missing for Airbnb to thrive in the diversified environment. This strategy can be broken down into two segments: the internal and the external. The internal half, also named decentralized decision-making structure. Airbnb's branches officers should have a higher degree of autonomy. The headquarters indeed have to set the direction for the company, but all the branches should be able to make decisions on how to achieve the goal. This allows branches to make policies by involving local culture, local laws, and regulations. Although most outlets in China probably won't accept a stranger staying under their roof for a night. As a result, for the Chinese market, you want to focus on only young people who live in the big cities. Choosing the right place and the right people is significant to Airbnb's expansion. Merger and acquisition will be an external method for Airbnb to adapt to the local environment. As a multinational corporation, which is now still worth more than 18 billion, when a merger occurs, Airbnb should pool resources from other regional branches to help the local branches conducting the merge and acquisition. The benefits from this would be blend in the local market smoothly. So, what actually happened in Airbnb is because the absence of a systematic strategy, resulting in the loss of internal control, lack of competitive advantages, and making it difficult to adapt to a diversified global market. Based on these three sub-issues, we provided strategies, recommendations, risk analysis, and contingency plan. Overall, it's reasonable for Airbnb to start working on its own adaptive strategy this year. But everything changes too quickly. We then shifted all the spotlight to a single question: can Airbnb survive the pandemic? Well, short answer, yes, with an if.
Airbnb's main short-term rental services has been struck really hard. As countries and cities are on lockdown, the world's tourism industry becomes stagnant and businesses start to shift their meetings online, which cut almost all the business-related travels, putting Airbnb in a bitter circumstance.
Now, every business starts to realize that the market will never go back to where it was. During the quarantine, you don't really expect people to go out and consume, but they certainly can consume online. The demand are shifted. Business have to make a response to that quickly. Now, travel become less frequent and characterized by the small scale and more family-oriented. Also, the clean and safety becomes the traveler's primary consideration. Changing in the general market leads to the huge issue for Airbnb. Is their target market still there? If not, what is their current target market? And more importantly, is Airbnb still able to deliver their unique value proposition to users? Among so many questions, one thing is for sure: operation in an old way is not going to work. Many aspects have to be changed.
Airbnb's target market has significantly shifted. The lockdowns, quarantines, and air traffic control have cut our travel plans down for months. People having their meetings online, even having their travels online. The impact to the tourism businesses is huge, especially reflected in the urban short-term rental markets. Fortunately, the rural market got less affected by it, because the rural markets are targeting people who are looking for unique stays and experience. And it's really easy for the rural markets to make this happen, as most of the locations are remote, less populated, and cost less to fulfill customers' demand.
Airbnb's core value proposition was to provide people with unique experiences with an affordable price, while growing the connection and trust between host and guest. Maybe this time, Airbnb should really look back to its roots. Easy to use, but comprehensive.
The first response of Airbnb is to deliver their value proposition to users through live stream. Airbnb has launched online travel and live experience social media. Mostly there are different chat rooms that contains, let's say, 8 to 10 people. The small scale can ensure that efficient communication between the hosts and the guests to ensure the experience of the online tours. One of the most significant features of its stream is that hosts become anchors, from renting their house to selling a time and experience, so that the guests can experience the local culture of the destination without leaving their homes. Online hosts that focus on the unique user experience is still conform to Airbnb's value proposition and do not require additional marketing expense. Secondly, Airbnb starts to encourage local exploring and unique stay, especially for families. The launch of Airbnb Hygiene Host Certification Program is aimed at stimulating the consumptions of the guest and certify hygiene housing to meet the needs of the early open short-term distance travel market. Also, Airbnb focuses on the concept of a unique stay and entire family rentals, which provide guests with a filtered, high quality and contactless services.
Its responses towards the COVID are short-term strategies in order to thrive in the long run. The systematic strategy to control place and the process must apply to both offline rental and its online stream. For the stream media, the strategy has to ensure the live content is healthy and positive, and probably they will want to include ratings, reviews, and classifications. And most important thing is to make sure the video and live stream do not contain inappropriate contents, because the kids watch them too. For the offline short-term rental services, the strategy has to ensure the safety and cleanliness of the room, as sanitizer and clean procedure will be people's primary concern.
As the world closed down around us, China turned out to be the first country that got through the crisis, and the only one started to go back to normal. Businesses seeking new opportunities there, and that isn't a bad choice at all.
The Chinese market is a good sample to test the post-COVID economy. One thing I would encourage Airbnb to explore Chinese market is not simply because the market is reopened. Rather, it is because the economic conditions is most similar to the post-COVID market. As we can see that the international market is not integrated as it was. The quarantine, social distance, and even lockdowns result market separation and localization in terms of business activities.
In response to the impact of the pandemic, the Chinese government has issued several policies including tax reduction, rent subsidies, energy cost subsidies, and financing support policies to help the tourism industry to recover. The government also encouraged companies such as Alibaba to send out coupons to its users, stimulating the country's consumptive power. Airbnb should seek for these benefits from corresponding policies to a certain extent, especially the surge in consumption brought by millions of consumers' coupons. When the global market picks up in the future, we could expect the local government to adopt similar incentive policies to stimulate consumption. Airbnb should seek these opportunities for self-recovery. The changes not only reflect on the government's policies, but also on the consumer behaviors. Cleanliness and safety will be the primary consideration for consumers when traveling away from home. Also, family-oriented travel has grown into the main travel option. Surprisingly, ecotourism and zoos accounted for the majority. In order to meet the change of tourism's consumer behavior, Airbnb should enforce the sanitation process during this uncertain time. Hopefully, it can regain some of the consumers' confidence. China's rebound consumption after the reopening is a significant change of tourism market. The unprecedented surge of travel in current Chinese market should raise a hint for Airbnb to prepare for the industry change in other parts of the world.
Airbnb should really observe and experience the Chinese post-COVID economy, learn something from it. Take advantage of government subsidies in different localities while paying more attention to the local industry's trends and changes of consumer behavior. It has to stick to its local unique experience and never leave the safety and cleanliness behind during this uncertain time and after.
Years. Long enough for Airbnb to raise the sharing economy to perfection. But it didn't. The rapid growth and successes made it overlook the importance of a systematic strategy. Haven't got time to correct it yet. Who knows, the pandemic will come first, leaving Airbnb no choice but to put aside the long term again. Mistakes cannot be undone. Perhaps 2020 is the turning point for Airbnb. Now the industry has reshuffled. It is time for Airbnb to look forward to the future and to look back to its roots.